Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of War Games. That's right, the internet's favorite Friday night wargaming-related debate show. Haha, see, you can be number one in anything if you carve a small enough niche category. That's what we're here for. It is the show where real nerds have real debates about plastic toys. Joining me tonight are three illustrious members of the YouTube community, or at the very least, two illustrious members and a guy who happens to co-host a show with me. But we won't dwell on that. So, joining me is, of course, Hoops of Doom. Hoops, how you doing tonight, sir?
Amazing. Doing awesome.
That's what I like to hear. Recently did an awesome series on Hero Quest. If you have positive nostalgia, childhood, rich memories of Hero Quest, as I and I know many people around my age do, you should go watch that whole series. It's great.
So good.
Please watch it.
Absolutely. As always, by the way, everybody's channels will be linked down below, so please do click through. Also joining us, Paul Volcanti. How you doing, Paul?
Doing very well. How about yourself?
I'm great. Now, you've been putting up some great videos lately. I noticed a lot of your videos, you're in the car. Do you have like a long commute? And so
No,
you kind of...
I have like a 30-minute commute, but I have a 7-month-old daughter and work too many hours, so I don't know. Stole a play out of Mark Rosewater's playbook and started doing stuff in my car.
Hey, it's great. It worked for him. I love those podcasts and such he does in the car, and it works. It's fine. I don't have any issue with it. To me, you are making efficient use of the time, so check out Paul's stuff, too. It's great.
All about efficiency.
There you go. That's right. And finally, of course, you know him. You love him. It's Thomas Lyons. It's my co-host from Warhammer Weekly. We're not on Warhammer Weekly, Tom, so I don't have to give you a funny nickname. So there you go. How you doing, Tom?
Nice. I'm actually me today.
That's right. And we're not on the main
well.
show.
Yeah. I'm ready to fight this uphill battle. Let's do this.
Absolutely. So, as always, the rules of the game are simple. We're going to have 5 rounds of questions. Each round, each of our master debaters is going to give me their answer to their question. And not only are they going to give me their answer, but they're going to do their best to demolish the arguments of their enemies. And at the end of the round, the winner will be chosen by me based on the strength of the arguments alone, not my personal take. As you might guess, only the strength of the arguments matters, and possibly some bias against Tom. But other than that, completely the strength of the argument. At the end of 5 rounds, if we've got a winner, well, then they're the winner, 1 point per round. And they get to be the War Games champion for the next 2 weeks until the next show. If we don't have a winner, that means we go into the speed round, where the lightning-fast answer and the quickest wit decides who is the ultimate victor. So, gentlemen, do you feel like you understand all the rules, and have you brought your game faces? There it is. I like it, Paul. That's a serious game face. It's also kind of a creepy face. I might go the other direction across the street if I saw somebody walking down the street with that look, but that's okay. I love it. It's good stuff. All right. So, with that being said, it's time to fight. Let's fight. All right. So, round 1. Here we go. So, many people have expressed some, we'll call it consternation, with the resolution of Archaon, the final book in the End Times series. And so we're going to play a little imagination game here. Assume that the rest of the End Times leading up to the final chapter still happened. Pitch me your alternate ending to the End Times. So, that is it. Alternate ending to Archaon. And Tom, you're going to actually have it first. You're going to go first in this round. So take us away.
Son of a bitch. Okay. So, Sigmar and Archaon fall into the void. Okay, so we've led up to the end of Archaon. Right as Vlad steps up to shank Gelt, he's cleaved in half by a Kemrian blade.
You mean Manfred. I'll stop right there. I know what you mean.
Oh, shit. Yes, Manfred. Sorry.
Okay. I'm not going to count that against you. You're all right. Keep going.
Okay. So, awesome. Do that. So, he's cut in half by a blade wielded none other by Cetra. Okay? And with the Wind of Fire having a more kindred host than Teclis, it jumps into the sun-baked corpse of Cetra. And then the Incarnates are there with the help of Cetra. They close the portal, okay, with Sigmar and Archaon having fallen into the void. So now you cut away, and it cuts to the ends of the earth, okay? So, at the ends of the Earth, at the polar portals, the Lizard Man's gambit, the great plan, has actually worked. Okay, that they've taken their floating portions of Lustria to the portal gates, and since Chaos has wholly been distracted by their play in Middenheim, it's allowed the Lizard Men to free access to complete a ritual and seal the polar gates. Okay, so their great plan has actually succeeded, and that whole thing is explained, which we didn't have. And then it comes back to Middenheim. Chaos's forces descend upon Ground Zero. Their charge is halted by great searing lights from the heavens as impact craters hit, leaving behind gleaming golden warriors emblazoned with the emblem of Sigmar, led by the Celestant Prime, a figure whose identity is unclear behind the stern and unflinching gaze of his sculpted face. So Nagash, being Nagash, glares at the rest of the incarnates. Unsatisfied with mere mortality, he uses his magic, removes himself from the mortal plane as he seeks ascendancy. Cetra, his fiery vengeance fueled by the heat of Aquashi, stalks back to Khemri as he attempts to pull back the remnants of his empire. And the first notes of the song of Where Do We Go From Here, from the Buffy musical, ring out as the elves look around and realize they've lost everything. Their homeland, their trust, their love for one another. Malekith returns to the unified elven peoples, or what's left of them. Alariel retreats to the wilderness and finds her way to Lilith's domain with Erloth. Teclis, as well-known architect of the destruction of the events of the end time, including the sacrifice of the Everchild Aliathra, and his engineering of the return of Nagash, the drawing of the Sword of Cain, even the sinking of Ulthuan, Teclis is labeled a traitor and slinks off into the shadows of the world. His brother Tyrion, like Sigmar long before him, departs and wanders off into obscurity. A cult of Tyrion forms amongst the unified elven peoples, much to the chagrin of Malekith. And as Tyrion reflects it reflects both the best, that is the embodied Wind of Hyash, the Avatar of Hope, and the worst as the Avatar of Cain of the elven peoples. And so this cult forms, and a new world is created where the remnants of the old world is having to eke itself out. You have new factions like the Gilles Le Breton and Abarash, founding a new nation of undead and man fighting side by side. You have this rigid crusading theocracy led by the Celestant Prime, and across the seas, you have the remnants of the demonic hosts that were still on the world that are gathering their forces and working their dark rituals and preparing for the invasion of the old world.
All right, that's pretty strong. That's nice that you really weave the tale there. All right, so Boobs, you are up next.
All right, man. Mine's very simple. Very simple. So, I envision the book pretty much continues exactly as it is. Nothing really changed. Right at the end, boom, goes right back to the beginning. And the whole world just gets reset. You can do all sorts of things with that. You can change around the different factions, the whole timeline, the whole different story. But the book would just be the exact same, just ends on, it all begins again. Boom, because it goes into the warp, and you can do all sorts of things with, a whole different ideas and concepts thrown in. It keeps the exact same factions, people are happy with that. It's the exact same world. It's all good to go.
Okay. So is the idea that, like, Sigmar grasping the core of the world, that miracle that's happening and it's teased on the last page, is actually him recreating the world?
That's
so
exactly it.
Recreates a newish
Precisely that.
Okay.
Exactly.
Got it. All right. Short, simple, to the point. I think probably some people would have been happy if that had happened.
Absolutely. I think most people would love that, right?
Can't disagree with that. Okay. Very good. All right, Paul.
All right. So, all the way at the end of our story, Sigmar reaching out to touch the chaos, and suddenly he wakes up. It's all been a dream the whole time. I see that face palm. That's okay. But it wasn't entirely a dream. A lot of this was all things from reality, all actually woven into his dream, with some parts changed. It was what would have happened if that comet that had fallen out of the sky had not contained a relatively unuseful material, but was actually Sigmarite, which then the Empire was able to use to craft new weapons, new shields, new armor, and eventually create the Stormcast Eternals from that to beat back the forces of chaos, back toward the warp. However, they weren't quite strong enough, so they're really just continuing to fight to a stalemate. The occasional chaos incursion coming through, and a battle line continuing to rage on the horizon.
Okay, so now just to be clear on the comment, we're talking about like the Mordheim comet here. Is that your
Yes.
argument? Okay,
That
so
is-
Sigmar has dreamed like 500 years, right? That's the basic idea.
Well, I mean, like any dream, you kind of time travel a little bit. You kind of like
fair.
blink and stuff
Okay.
happens.
Got it. So our time where we're actually in can be relatively fluid. It doesn't really matter because whatever. There was this happen, and so the comet in fact contained Sigmarite, and the warp stone was all a dream. So everything sort of up to there. It's a little more Wizard of Oz maybe than totally Dallas, right? That's what we're saying. The dream touches to reality. Okay.
Exactly. The merging of the dream and reality.
Okay. All right. So. Very good. I like it. These are three strong ideas, very, very different ideas. That's what I like about this.
Yeah.
So, now we come to the part where you must destroy your enemies. All three of your ideas are strong, but, of course, this is where it's won and lost. So, Tom, we begin with you. Why should we not have simply remade the world? Why is the Dallas Wizard of Oz idea
Damn it!
good?
Stop mentioning Dallas. That was my punch to open with, you bastard.
Sorry.
So apparently we have some big Dallas fans in this channel, and we know how the Dallas finale was received by the fan base. It was so warmly loved and accepted, or lost for that matter, in some sense. Okay, let me just start. Okay, so Hooves, you're talking about like the world. Hooves, whatever. You're talking about the world being reset. What about the Great Plan? What about all of the different other like lost plot threads that's going on throughout the narrative? Like there's no payoff for any of that. There's no payoff for and it's like, and let me then tie this, like, not only is there no payoff for that in the various lost plot threads, but I'm going to jump over to Paul because this ties directly in with what I wanted to say to Paul's. If it's all a dream, there's no emotional payoff for the entire end times. And if it's actually jumping back to the comet of Mordheim 500 years in the past, it literally negates the last 30 years of lore. Karl Franz and everything. All of that is gone. Okay? So any investment that anyone had in any of the lore you've just undone because the last 30 years have evaporated. The end times itself is $300 of a non-story. As much as we want to complain about the Age of Sigmar, and the Age of Sigmar, like, doing away with this big time gap, the reality is those stories still happen, and they still influence and shape who those characters were. Both of these ideas negate the actual identity or the actual story of the end times itself, because it doesn't actually mean anything then. So, no. Sorry, guys. I'm out.
All right. Okay.
Do we lose Vince?
I'm here.
No.
I just clearly wowed Vince with my argument.
Yeah, no, it just froze, apparently. I'm sorry, I apparently froze. Hooves, it goes to you. Take it away.
All right. Well, I mean, Tom, you're out. That's definitely the case. Way too long, buddy. That story's ridiculous. You got the Tombkins and Lizardmen in there. Makes no sense. You can't like rewrite a dozen books and cram them all into the last chapter. I don't know, man. And Great Plan. Who really cares about that in the first place? Certainly not the Lizardmen. But the idea that the world just goes in a complete, over and over and over, it gets destroyed and renewed. And I've read almost every single Army book. I've read tons of Black Library novels. That's an idea that's been in Warhammer for years. And to the other point for the idea of a dream, I don't know, man. I during the end times, there was a point where I was like, man, I hope this isn't some stupid dream. And it just ends up being that. I don't know. It wouldn't fly for me. But here's the absolute linchpin for me. My idea doesn't have, you don't have the ridiculous new armies coming in that people don't like. I'm talking about the people that didn't like that book. This is the perfect solution to it. And the bottom line, I have a huge poster on the wall over there, and it says, "The end times are coming." That wasn't made, last year. That's from like 2002 or something. The idea of like the end times coming has been, a part of Warhammer right from the 80s. And in both of your ideas, it doesn't actually happen. In mine, the world actually does end.
All right. I like it. Strong. All right, Paul. I think you've got an uphill battle here. I'm not going to lie. But that's all right. I've seen it. You can pull it out. You have the strength of the last word, so take us home.
Yes. So, to Tom's point, this is all predicated on the Lizardmen actually figuring out what the hell is going on. When the whole time they've been kind of clueless, bumbling idiots, at least from what I've seen, like them being the answer to that saves the world somehow is like it just doesn't seem like likely, And what I can say in favor of your argument, though, is that I really like that the elves lose. They are just humiliated. They are dragged down, and I can go for that. Those little pointy-eared bastards need to go down. And really to the point that, in both mine and Hooves, that the end times doesn't mean anything. Well, really, the end times is, in my idea here is, it's the nightmare. It's when everything could go wrong, but the world is still there. It's still intact. And the majority of that plot line is all still there. It's just been tweaked with a couple of pieces missing and changed. So really, our plot still all has continuity. But we have a few different details, and now it can continue on just as it really always has. Now to the point of Mr. Hooves, the fact that you've got a poster that says the end times are coming, and it's been there for a while. You know who else has posters and things that say the end times is coming? Crazy homeless people. That's who has those signs. And as you said, it's an idea that's been done. Everybody's done this idea. And I know certainly mine has as well, but mine is epically bad. So epically bad that you can believe that Games Workshop would write that crap. So, and really also with the going to the continuity, I think there really is no continuity. If the world ends and it's reset, all the characters are gone. Everybody we know and love, it's all reset and we're starting anew, pretty much like we did with Age of Sigmar, which kind of pissed everybody off. I think that's about all I got for you guys.
All right. Well, we'll call it right there. Those were some strong arguments. I liked everybody's points. Paul, let me tell you what, you did a super admirable job, and your final point was so strong you almost put yourself back in the running with that point of it's so epically bad we believe Games Workshop will do it. Man, if there was a good point you made. That is, you get a serious honorable mention for that this round, just for saying that, because if anybody was going to pull a Dallas, it would be Games Workshop, right? They would. We're talking about people who headbutted Archaon out of the end times last time, so that's certainly waking up in a dream. I don't
and
buy it.
Almost did it this time as well.
Sure. Well, that was there clearly to reference it, just to worry us all they were going to do it again. But yes. I think it came down, though, really, to Tom and to Hooves. And I think both of you have very compelling arguments for different reasons. Tom, you gave us a continuation of the story wherein you were picking up all the threads, right? And you were giving us a new world on the same on the same world, but with a lot of different factions and movements. And Hooves, you were doing much the same thing, because if the world's remade, you'd point at there'd be different factions, alliances, things going on. So both of you actually in play, like if I'm someone new showing up, the world it would look almost the same to me, whichever of your ideas came true, right? So both of them are equally good in that point. That is to say, ultimately, 10 years down the line, I wouldn't even know the difference between your two ideas, right? But in the end, I am going to have to give it. I'm going to have to give it to Hooves because even though Tom, I love the story you picked up with and you hit a lot of good plot threads. I feel like the one that he picked up on really well was this idea of Sigmar recreating the world and doing this. And it was this, to me, all those other threads were more or less forgotten about by the time we reached the end of the book. This was not. This was the final word. And I feel like it just didn't get paid off in a way that we wanted to see. And in the end, we both arrived at the same place. Both really strong, but I got to give it to Hooves in round one.
Absolutely, Vince. I completely agree. Thank you. And, to my opponents, you've just been crushed by the Hooves of Doom.
Viewers, if you disagree, downvote this video.
Thanks, Tom. I appreciate that. If you, as always, if you think I've made the wrong decision, feel free to post it below. Absolutely.
Oh, I will.
All right. Round 2. Warhammer, as we know, as many of them have already come up in this show, has a host of special characters, but many are either dead or missing beyond the Chaos Demons, because obviously those guys are like the Energizer Bunnies of the Warhammer world. They just keep coming back, no matter how annoying or dumb they are. So, we have very few real special characters that have been new and introduced in this new age of Sigmar, as Tom rightly pointed out last show. So, what I would like for you to do is pitch me a new special character for any race. This can even be a race that isn't technically in the game, but so any race, and who they are and what role they play in the Age of Sigmar. All right, and Paul, you are starting us off this round.
All right. So, what I've noticed throughout the bits of fluff that I've picked up along the way so far, it doesn't seem like Warhammer has had a really good anti-hero. So, my idea is a human that had turned to chaos, been worshipping Khorne. Now that we've entered the Age of Sigmar, we've got the Stormcast Eternals coming down and just kicking the crap out of Chaos Warriors all over the place. And this guy, this general in Khorne's army, sees everything that Sigmar is capable of. He sees the raw power that Sigmar wields. And he decides, screw Khorne, he's weaker, I'm going to go worship the more powerful god. So he makes his way out of the Chaos Realms down to the Empire to return to his people, now something of a hero because he's the only person that's ever come back from the grip of chaos. And with that, he is able to rally troops around him, rally people around him, and lead the Empire to great victories against chaos. However, he's still touched by chaos. He's still kind of crazy, still does crazy things. He's really worshipping Sigmar as if he were Khorne. So he motivates people to worship Sigmar in that same way and creates legions of new religious zealots worshipping Sigmar and hell-bent to defeat chaos.
All right, I like it. That's a pretty good capture of the anti-hero. Yeah, it's funny. It's not a commonly used trope just because there are so many. Even the heroes of the Warhammer world are pretty gritty and dark already, so we didn't need the anti-hero trope as heavily. But no, I like it. Okay, very good. All right, Tommy, you're up, sir. What's our new special character?
Absolutely. So my new special character that I'm going to suggest is someone that we recognize, but not really. So my pitch is for Morathi, consort of Slaanesh. So we know Morathi's been taken by Slaanesh at the end of the End Times Cain, and we know that Morathi was the one that introduced the pleasure cults and the corruption amongst the elven peoples a millennia ago, whether these were the actual Slaanesh cults, as they were in prior editions, or retcon cults of the elven god of pleasure in 8th edition. It's clear that Morathi is quite the match for Slaanesh, a being who eagerly desire, nay, lusts for the very essence of elves. who better to be his or hers, depending on how you understand Slaanesh and whatever floats your boat, who better to be the consort of an ancient being of immense magical power than an ancient being of immense magical power, one that is only matched by her wickedness, and who can continue to tease and tantalize Slaanesh for eternity. Who can also continue to tempt other elves into the worship of Slaanesh, tricking them not only into a lifetime of service, but also convincing them to willingly turn themselves over to Slaanesh in the next life. Now, this is Morathi, but this is not the Morathi that we know or that we've seen, so this is an evolution of the character, where there's hints and echoes, but this is really a new person, and one that is fully an agent of chaos, fully embraced and embracing of all that Slaanesh has to offer her.
All right. So not like Isabella in the end times, where she had a demon living inside her but rebelled. This is a willing partnership, as she would see it, right?
Yes. Yes, a very pleasurable partnership for everyone involved.
Right. I like it.
And so, and whether you envision Slaanesh as male or female, it really works either way.
Sure, absolutely. All right, very strong. I like that. All right, Hooves, you've got the final one in this in the opener, so go ahead.
All right. This is going to be easy. I made these detailed notes. It's just not even worth it. Just rip those up. This is going to be simple. Mine is Mentor. All right. Now, I made this amazing Hero Quest video 2 weeks ago, and 2 more last week. And if you haven't watched those, I just put this video on pause and go watch. But getting back to my point. Exactly. Getting back to my point. The wizard that brought together these heroes to fight against common foes, Frozen Whore, the Witch Lord, that stupid elf, his name was Mentor. And he brought together elves, dwarves, and barbarians, and humans, and he forged them into a coherent force. So Sigmar is going to bring back Mentor, and he is going to show the Stormcasts how to rediscover the elves, the dwarves, and the free people and unite them into a coherent force. People want to know what happened to their armies. This is a perfect way to do it. Mentor's just going to rock.
I like it. So Mentor becomes sort of our window. He's kind of like our narrative sort of guy who leads us through.
And he has no helmet. He's like a real character. Not. Whoop.
Got it. Okay, very good. All right, so now it is time to crush your enemies and see them driven before you. So, Paul, you get to go first. So, why is Morathi version 2.0? I would certainly say an upgraded Morathi, no doubt, and Mentor not the right choice here. Why is our anti-hero the winner? By the way, do we have a name for this guy?
I don't know. I'm not that creative. That's not my vein of creativity.
All right, we'll call him Stormy McBloodborne. All right, go ahead.
Yes. So you have a mentor named Mentor? I guess we do kind of go back to, it's so bad that Games Workshop could believe this. But really, you're talking about having an audience analog as a character, which is one of those really common things that's done in pretty much everything. So I think overall it's kind of been done, not that deep of a story. It's not really a gripping sort of character that you can really get deep into, because you're just really seeing through his eyes. You're not getting inside his head all that much, it seems. But speaking of gripping things,
you're damn right.
Good segue. Good segue.
Tom, your character sounds like the star in the Warhammer German dungeon porn. This is basically
You mean
I don't even know what this
hero? Is that just Slaanesh hero?
That's all well and good, but children play this game. We can't be having that. It really what sort of a weapon does this character wield? I mean, I can only assume it would be phallic. I mean, it's got to be, right? So I think it's really, with all of the sexual imagery that's in here, it's really just pandering to the nerd crowd. The guys that, you know, they like the boobies, you know? They might not get that much action,
I think
but...
this makes 4 episodes in a row, by the way. This has come up, so that's for you, buddy. There you go. 4 episodes in a row. That point is come up. All right, keep going.
Yeah, I mean, it's a plot to a porno, not like a game. Like, I understand that, like, it's good to appeal to a mass market, like nerds that really would like to see some females now and then, but you know, there's a broader market out there of all of the nerds. Like, you know, I know myself, I'm married, I know Vince is married, I don't know about you gentlemen as well, but you know, not all nerds are sad and lonely and in need of Warhammer German dungeon porn.
All right, very good. All right, I think those are strong. Tom, what do you got?
Well, let me just open by saying thank you, Paul, for your endorsement of why Marathi is such a good fit for the role of a Slaanesh hero. I mean, I would say that you're right. That she needs to appeal to a broader market, and she stands as female empowerment, okay? Because she has stepped up and she has taken on a god head on, and she has been able to weather this storm of a chaos god and hold her own. And so she really is. She is a proverbial female taking the bull by its horns. So I would
not
say
sure that's what she's grabbing.
No, it's not. But you don't need to include that in the miniature. Okay, so all I'd say is thank you, Paul, because that was a great endorsement. Now, since I'm addressing you, Paul, let me address your anti-hero. So, no anti-hero, huh? What about Malice Darkblade and his 600 Black Library books? It seems like we've been down this road before.
Good point, though.
Archeon would be a better choice. If anyone would be a good choice for this, Archeon would be the good choice. And it seems like we've even hinted this direction, and he would be a truly new character if he was dedicated to Sigmar. So, anti-heroes aren't bad ideas, but you have to actually like go with where the punchiness is, and the reality is that Archeon would be that punchiness. Now, all that to say that it's also, I'm going to neglect the fact that like no empire actually exists in Age of Sigmar for him to go down to, and in the current lore, what it would be is that he would be joining the Stormcast Eternals, and he would forget who he is as a being. And so, like, his anti-hero-ness would dissolve into his non-beingness of being a Sigmarine. So, in the current fluff, that all becomes problematic. So, I think that having allegiance to Sigmar and pursuing that route, at least in the Age of Sigmar, is going to be problematic until we actually have new factions. Something that you didn't pitch us. So, who's? Mentor. Man, I don't even know where to start here, friend. Mentor, so this is Mentor, and he's going to go get the named character Warrior and the named character Warlock and bring them together, right? No. Okay, so like
just bring back that wizard.
Yeah, sure.
It's brilliant, Tom. Admit it.
No, it's really not. So, from a purely marketing standpoint, this is where it falls flat. It's not relatable to new customers. If you're looking at what Age of Sigmar is trying to bring in new people. And the problem is it's a callback to something that's a 20-year-old board game that probably 80 to 90%. Listen, I came to fantasy gaming on HeroQuest, and I had no idea what the damn name of that guy was. And so that callback falls flat on me, someone who is a vast minority of people, because I actually enjoy Age of Sigmar, and I had experienced HeroQuest, and it's meaningless to me. Okay? Let alone the 13-year-old kid that's walking in off the street. And so, the tweeters and the Instagrammers and all of the young kids that that are walking on our lawn, okay, when they stroll into Age of Sigmar, they're going to look at Mentor and be like, who the hell named this guy? Seriously? This is the douchiest thing I have ever heard of.
And then they're going to get banned from all that social media from posting pictures from your army.
Hey.
All right. I think those are very solid, Tom. I like where you're going. All right. But Hooves, you've got the final word. So
easily done, Vince. Easily done. So yeah, I get it. With regard to Tom, he just has a poor memory. I mean, I love Mentor, and you're right. For the new players, that doesn't matter. They're trying to keep the older players, and the older players love Mentor. And you're right. It's so stupid. Games Workshop will do it as per the first round. And you know what? When it comes to Tom, with his, he's always going on about the elves for some stupid reason. So I mean, an elven character, that's not to be expected. I just doesn't really appeal to me. With regards to Paul, it's just no part of the lore. I mean, you can't have this guy coming from Chaos. He has like a whole bunch of extra arms and like a dozen eyes. No one's gonna want to be friends of him and play with him. It doesn't matter if he's like dressed in gold. He's just not gonna be there. So I just don't buy it. It's not part of the lore ever. No one's ever come from Chaos. Done.
all right, I'll call it right there because I've got my winner. Okay, so let me tell you, and I'll break this down for our viewers. Here we go. Paul, here's the thing. I like your pitch the best, but the problem is Tom, he took your legs right out from under you when he said Archaon would have been the right choice for this. And he's right, because there are at least 2 mentions, if not 3, if you like, of people in the last book saying Archaon could have been the greatest hero for Sigmar ever if he had just had a slightly different path. So if you had seized on that, you'd be walking with this round. But Tom pointed out that your nameless guy doesn't hold a candle to Archaon. So that's he took you right out there. Now, Hooves, I gotta say, unfortunately, they both piled on you, and I heard too many good arguments.
He was the best option for it.
Doesn't like I get it that he is the sort of faceless thing that is exactly as Paul said. I thought Paul's argument was very strong against here. He's sort of this faceless thing that we can experience the world through. The problem is he's right. It's been done, and what we really need is somebody to actually get in their head and to be a compelling character. And the reality is Tom's idea is pretty good, and I don't buy the anti-sexual thing. Kingdom Death sold out like a bajillion miniatures. Like sex sells, Hollywood will tell you as much. And you can couch that stuff in inappropriate PG-13, ways. That is to say, that is the target audience of this game, right? I mean, PG-13, 13 and up is probably your target audience for this game. So, in the end, Tom, I got to give you the point, buddy. This is that was very solid. That's your round. All right. That was well fought, though. I liked all those. I do love the idea of all of those. Let me say that. If all 3 of them just showed up tomorrow, I'd be fine with it. I'd have no issue with it. Old Mentor should be walking me through the Age of Sigmar.
Absolutely.
Again. Come with me, adventurers. Let me explain what's going on in the realm of fire. Like, that'd be great. Things would make sense. If Mentor was explaining it, it'd have to make sense.
Mentor's got to be the stupidest name in like all the lore, though.
It's pretty bad. All right. So, talking about Age of Sigmar means talking about rules changes. So, that brings us to round 3. Round 3, here we go. What is the worst rules change in any edition of Warhammer? So the worst rules change, you can pick anything from the history of the game, from 1983 to 2015. The worst rules change. And Hooves, you start us off this round, sir, so go ahead.
Absolutely. This is going to be nice and short and sweet. The victory points for 8th edition, how they were calculated. You had to kill that unit right to the last man, or you got nothing. And I don't know. I think that was a pretty horrible move because it made people hide at the back of the field if the unit got damaged, and it encouraged those uber units that no one wanted to see on the battlefield. Done.
All right. Yeah, certainly, I mean, it's short but sweet, but you're right. It did do exactly that. People hid units, people were played more conservatively, people, there's just Death Stars, all these things are sort of spillouts from that. So that's, and I've heard some other, critiques of that as well. All right. Paul, you're up next.
All right, so I'm going to go with the advent of that forward arc of view that we had in 8th edition, and really more specifically, like how it applies to shooting. Like it just simply doesn't make any sense that you can look straight ahead of you, and that thing 45 degrees to the left you can hit, but God forbid it's 46 degrees. Can't hit it. Sorry, can't turn my gun that far. Not only to mention that, like, just the human field of vision is actually wider than that 90-degree angle, so it's not even really realistic, at least for the human units. And then we get on to, like, the lizard men and a number of their troops. Their eyes are on the side of their head. They can't even see in front of them. So that makes no sense at all.
Gotcha. So am I to assume that included in this is also, like, the change to single models and to fast cavalry and things like that, where they can't see 360, even though they could literally just turn their head and look that direction?
Yeah, absolutely. There's the fact that you took this system, that in particular shooting, you had this system that was just very much like, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like hyper-simulational. If that's a word, I don't know. I might be making up words. But
fine. I get where you're going.
Like the whole shooting system, is based on really simulating what would actually happen in a battle. Are they at long distance? Are they in cover? How good of a shot are you? All of those sorts of things. And then we get to what things you can shoot at, and we have this like arbitrary, like strictly game rule that doesn't have any connection to the simulation of the battle, which it just doesn't make sense. It was just creating this arbitrary rule that really destroyed a ton of flavor that was in there, and then they just they ruined it. They focused on the wrong parts of the simulation and making sense.
All right. Very good. All right, that forward arc also is a known proud nail that I have discussed many times, so certainly I like where you're going there. All right, Tom, you're bringing us home on the opening here, so okay. What is yours? So while there are a lot of options, and while I have to go with the clearly obvious one, and you can't visit any former Warhammer 8th community and not hear bitching about this rule change. It's the rule change that brought about the desolation of our hobby. Okay, I know I'm fighting an uphill battle here against Vince, but this is the removal of points on units in the move from 8th edition to Age of Sigmar. Okay? Because, look, anyone that has any semblance, and you know what I'm saying, Hooves? Look, anyone that has any semblance of understanding knows that balance is an illusion, okay? But points facilitated this illusion. The fact that we went to tournaments that were comp demonstrates that we know that points are illusion. We know that things can be rebalanced and that the points aren't the end-all. But in one sense, they were a framework that gave us a starting point to argue about what is balanced and what isn't. That it was a median that we could begin conversations about balance and begin to adjust things from. The problem is with their removal, AOS has single-handedly caused an entire generation of Warhammer players with some with decades of Warhammer pedigree to go, nah, fuck it, and walk away and go to other games. And you can see this in every game store, okay? Like, there's a thread on Warseer right now that is attested to the wide-sweeping geographical failure of Age of Sigmar in some areas, okay? And they have mapped out all the communities that it is not being played in, okay? And it's taken away in any serious way for Age of Sigmar to be competitive in the competitive scene. Like, you can get Timmy games, but Johnny games are absent now, okay? And points are what facilitated that. Even if the points needed to be modified, even if additional restrictions need to be put on there, that's what allowed that facilitation. The base rules of Warhammer don't allow for that anymore. Now, this is the single most cited change for why both ETC and Masters have fled from Age of Sigmar, is a lack of ability to actually balance and actually bring forces into change. So if a rules change effectively alienates what was the entire player base of the game, isn't that the worst rules change of any edition? I don't know what is. Okay, pretty strong. Obviously, yes, Tom knows that I'm not no fan of points either. I don't mind them going away, but that is a very strong argument. Like, you make a very good point. All right, so now we come to the time to beat them down. So it's time to rumble in the streets. So, Hooves, you have the first go. Why are they both wrong?
Again, I made these complex rules here, or notes, and I'll just rip those up. They're just worthless. Tom, it's just ridiculous. I mean, yeah, some people don't like that rule, but I think most people are going with the flow. That's the argument I'm sticking with, and people are just loving it. And when it comes to, the arc, now, I'm probably one of the only one of you that has actually been in the military. Maybe some of you have been like Black Ops or something like Vint. It's probably clearly Navy SEALs X.
Clearly.
Having been working on the stupid parade ground doing drill, if you look off to your right or left, you get yelled up like bonkers. So I'm saying it's perfectly legitimate that they can't turn their heads left or right. And I think that's, a perfectly okay rule.
Okay. So you're saying it does speak to a simulationist. So
Absolutely.
The argument of that it clashes with the simulationist, isn't it? You actually saw some realism in that to your own experience.
Absolutely. If someone's ordering you to walk forward, you're not looking to, you're not going to run off to the left. That's just what it is.
Okay.
That's called discipline, Vince. Discipline.
I like it. All right, Paul.
All right. So beginning with in order with Mr. Hooves, I understand where you're coming from, but in my experience in general, how many games outside of the tournament scene are actually decided based on that convoluted point system? I don't think too many actually were. People playing competitively, people playing and prepping for tournaments. Like, sure, they're going by the letter of the law and they're playing that game out. I mean, how many games happened that everybody just picked up their models because they knew?
Every game. Every game.
And for Tom, I'm actually a really big fan that they got rid of the point system, because one of the things that it seems to be doing is it's basically taking all of the spiky Melvin people and they're departing. Which, nothing necessarily against those people personally, but it's pretty clear that they're not Games Workshop's audience. It's not who this game's actually intended for. So they're kind of alienating an audience that they really weren't going after to begin with, and they created the 8th edition rule system that attracted people that they really didn't intend to be the audience for. And as for Age of Sigmar being a failure because of this, at least with the folks that I've talked to, sales of the Warhammer product are actually going up considerably. So at least from a business point of view, this has been a huge success compared to where they've been in the past. We've got stores that were, it was just 40K. You probably saw more Lord of the Rings getting played at some of these stores in Warhammer Fantasy, and now there's sudden new interest in it because there's such a massive shift. It's attracting 40K players, it's attracting people from other game systems, it's bringing people in that would have never even thought of a game like this before, because it's creating a space that there weren't too many games in. There are plenty of miniature games out there that you can play in tournaments that are super spiky, that you can just go nuts and go in that direction on. Just looking at what happened, like Kings of War, everybody's going to Kings of War because it's such another similar game to what 8th edition was. It was so not unique. So in terms of a business decision, they're going to evolve their IP, and they're going to bring it into a space that is not nearly as crowded as it currently is. Sure, it's going to alienate some part of the player base, but, I assume they've done some sort of market research at some point, and that their understanding of their target market after 30 years of doing this, that it's predominantly hobbyists and not tournament gamers, they know what they're doing. Clearly they've failed a number of times, but everybody drops the ball, and I think the inherent way that Warhammer has always been done, it lended itself to a failure just sort of dragging on forever. But Age of Sigmar is kind of fixing that, right? Because we don't have like these static books anymore. Now we have this dynamic, ever-changing sort of system, and in that, it doesn't make sense to have point values. If you have, for example, towards the end of 8th edition, when was the last Bretonnian book released? Anybody?
2004.
2004. So more than a decade, and I believe that would have been during 6th edition, correct?
That is correct, yes.
So 2 editions of Warhammer go by, they don't have an update to their book, they don't get new models, they get nothing. And because of that, they become, in 8th edition, one of the most bottom-tier armies, because they don't have new rule sets and new models to stay up to date with the other changes in the game that have been made. And by getting rid of points, that allows you to constantly have this game that changes and evolves, and with the target audience that they're looking for, they're able to actually do that because they're people that are going to be able to sit down across the table from each other and just have a discussion and say, you know, I want to play this kind of game. Okay, that sounds good. You know, they're not really looking for a tournament scene, which is really something that, you know, is reliant on a point system. And, you know, if they wanted a tournament scene, it would exist because they would make it exist, right? Like, all of the tournament scenes of Warhammer are all community produced. There is not an official sanctioned tournament scene. Like, you know, Magic the Gathering is a great example. They basically run the entire tournament scene. There's a few things here and there that they don't touch, but everybody uses their rules. Nobody's really going outside of that. They have a tight grip on it because that's the game they want to have. And I think really, like, Games Workshop is going for that now. They've figured out how to do it, and getting rid of points was one of the key things to get forward in the game.
Okay.
Brilliant argument, Paul. Brilliant.
I apologize for that being horrifically long-winded.
That was very long, but all right, that's okay. Everybody gets one. Yeah, Tom opened the show with his long story, so everybody gets one. Hooves, you still got your long one coming up if you want at some point. All right, Tom, go ahead.
Well, Paul, thank you for that non sequitur about GW's business practices and not the actual influence of the rules on the game on the ground. Okay, and I'll get back to that, but let me first focus on the failure of your various proposals. Now, first of all, Hooves, man, really? Like, okay, so let me start here. You didn't, like, your argument actually was incomplete because it actually wasn't clear what the change of the rule was. You acknowledge the need to kill the whole unit to get the victory points, but you never actually walked through what the original alternative was, nor did you walk through what it should have been changed to or what it shouldn't have been changed from. And so, honestly, you have an incomplete argument. Okay, it's not. You don't have a full picture of what's going on, and so it's really hard to follow that, especially for those of us that didn't play in prior editions, editions before 8th. So I really feel like your argument falls flat because I actually don't understand what the change was. Now, thank you, Hooves. Now, Paul, field of view. So this is a funny thing. This game is about abstractions, okay? And there's this tension between simulationist gaming and non-simulationist gaming, or you kind of moving towards like abstraction. And so, like, in general, we accept that what's on the table, you don't actually have like 40 dudes there. You have some unit of some relative size to other things. It's representing the challenges of relaying orders into coordinating activities towards a certain person or a certain unit at some direction. So if everybody's going to turn, if everybody's going to attack, if you're going to level shots, you know, your people need to be able to see and all of those things. And so the field of arc is actually replicating that. And so the irony here is that you said if this was you know, you were talking about how this isn't that you're talking about the simulationist, and the reality is that if this is simulationist, it actually maps to what they were doing. Okay, because you are arguing that it's not, and the reality is that it is. that this is a simulation, a situation that they're trying to actually replicate on the ground. Because it's requiring some degree of abstraction, they're trying to mess with that and have that reflected in the rules. And so while that may not make sense from a, like, hey, my miniature can see this right here, it's actually trying to represent the complexity of what armies are doing on the ground, and moving and relaying commands and targeting attacks and all those complications that get confused in the hustle and bustle of Battlefield. So so let me then close with this. Almost all of the comp that's out there right now for Age of Sigmar is a points comp. Okay, it's created this point system to make Age of Sigmar playable in any competitive way. Azir comp does this. Mordheim, to some degree, after the Warband creation, our system does this. Paul, just because you like bad things doesn't make like, just because you like bad things doesn't make the thing that you like good. Okay, and for the record, it's Spike, not Melvin. And you know, like, even going to game shops, let me just say that. Have you tried to get an Age of Sigmar game there? Have you tried to talk about a competitive game? I brought up looking to do a competitive game, and I got shut down immediately by my local game store because they said Age of Sigmar is not for that type of gaming. If you want competitive gaming, go to Kings of War. Like, straight up, that's what I was told. Okay.
Next said that at Games Workshop?
No, that wasn't Games Workshop, but that was one of my local game stores. Now, this is not about. And this gets back to the non sequitur. This is not about the success of GW. This is about the change of the rule and what it's done to our community. Again, the reason why we have this ETC whole debacle, the reason why we have the Masters debacle, is all because of this single rules change. None of these other rules change had the dramatic, world-shattering impact of our hobby. The reason why Mantic is on the rise as a company is because of this rule change. None of these other rule change heralded that type of change.
All right, I'm gonna ring the bell. All right, ding, ding, ding. Ring the bell. That was a good round. All of you honestly had things that I have spoken about as certainly challenging. And though I won't cut too long on this one. Though I obviously do disagree with it. And think it was actually a good thing for the game, I cannot argue with the overall impact, and I got to give this round to Tom. Both of you, Hooves and Paul, you had some really good points. I thought they were strong, but ultimately Tom dropped a meteor down onto the field, and he's right.
He
the
just
impact
talked
is
on
traitorous.
You know what I did? I just took all of your points away and said, "Go play a game."
Oh, exactly.
All right.
In the end, it's us that wins with no points.
There you go, exactly. Regardless of whether or not it might have been bad, that is the current state. So if you like it, hey, you're the winner in real life. There you go.
I mean, everybody's a winner. Like, people that want a point system have games that they can go to with a point system. People that don't want one, hey, it exists now.
There you go. That is also very true. Everyone's a winner in wargaming, right? That's right. Okay, I like it. That's a good message. That should be the tagline on my channel. Everyone's a winner, except on this show where only one person gets to win. So next round. All right. Round 4. Round 4 is the showdown round. This is where we take some of the popular things from the Warhammer universe and we smash them together. We go head to head. So, here we go. Showdown. Monster fight. All right, so in this round, we've got the Flame Phoenix, everybody's popular little fiery Phoenix, Conan the Adventurer's best friend, against the Soul Grinder, the demonic engine of brass and demon, and the Terrorgeist, obviously well-known and very hated screamy scream monster of the previous edition. All right. So this round, that takes us back to Tom, starting us off. Tom, your picture went away. Are you still there?
I rise from the ashes. Okay.
Yeah, that's a huge leg spike.
So clearly, like, here's the deal. There's no contest here. There's not even a really conversation here. If anybody's read the stats of the Flamespire Phoenix, like, I don't even know why we're having this conversation. The Flamespire has greater mobility than his opponents, with both fly and a larger range. He's able to use that move to move over a model before charging it, causing an unresistible D6 mortal wounds. He only has 12 wounds, which that is, granted, he has less than everybody else on the table. He starts with a 4. He's going to have a 4+ save from his attuned to magic ability. He's going to have another 4+ ward save that can't be modified and blocks normal and mortal wounds. This means that on first contact, he'll average 3 wounds from his Wake of Fire. First round of attacks, 3 of the attacks are going to hit, 2 are going to wound, and statistically, at least 1 is going to land. Likely both for 4 damage total. Likewise, the Rider, which is on the same War Scroll, will land 3 of his hits, wound with 2, and either do 1 or 2 damage, which means that each of these other monsters at the start of the combat have reduced effectiveness between 7 and 10 wounds. If an enemy gets low on wounds, the Phoenix can just decide to retreat and do automatic mortal wounds as he drops the mic and kills his enemy. So, hypothetically, let's say that you win the slugfest on terrible rolls and manage to put 14 wounds on the Phoenix through his 4+4+. Congrats. There's now a 50% chance that he pops up back on the table at full wounds, ready to fly over your ass for an automatic D6 mortal wounds again before charging you. This means that if he put any wounds on either of those models during that slugfest after the first round of combat, he'll likely at least kill the Terrorgeist before the next skirmish even starts and have the Soul Grinder down to a number of wounds that it would be statistically impossible for him not to kill him in the first round of combat.
All right.
Matt.
Flamey is he is very potent in the Age of Sigmar, no doubt about it. All right, Hoobs, that takes us to you. Your pick.
All right. So, I'm probably the only one that actually took the effort to actually get the model out to show you guys how amazing the Terrorgeist really is. The paint job sucks, but it's an amazing model. And I think we'd all agree the wings on that model, Vince especially, are just great. And this thing can fly, it can screech, heal itself, it explodes when you kill it. It's just going to move around every range, just screeching, screeching, screeching. It's just going to destroy that dumb bird. And what's the other one? Oh, that grinder that should really remain 40k. I don't even know why it's in fantasy. So it's just going to dominate, period.
All right. Paul, that takes us to you.
All right, so I crunched the numbers on all 3 of these units and kind of did some matchups between the 2 of them to see what would actually happen. Which, I'm not going to go through the details because it's a thing for my channel and that's boring for people that don't like that. But basically, the point is that pound for pound, that Soul Grinder, he is going to take out both of those. He can probably take them both out at the same time, and I'm not even kidding. I did the math. If it gets the charge, you're done. If it happens to get that one lucky roll, it's just going to drop D6 mortal wounds on your head. The Terrorgeist, that thing's only got, what, 10 wounds? Is that right? No, 14 wounds. Still not nearly enough. And it only has a 5-up save. The Soul Grinder is throwing out attacks with Rend 2. That means that both the Terrorgeist and the Flamespire Phoenix don't really have armor. Sorry. So with a couple of lucky rolls, in fact, and not even that statistically out of reason, the Soul Grinder can charge the Terrorgeist and just turn it into a red mist before it even attacks. And then it can turn around and move on to the Phoenix, which apparently is trying to, take one out of the Dwarf Handbook and do a bombing run, and then, run away like a little bitchy elf, I guess. It kind of fits in the book. They're going to hit and run, But even then, with the ward saves, you would think that would be good. But it's still just not enough for the immense power that's coming through from the Soul Grinder's attacks. There's just too much hitting there. It's got better armor, better bravery, so it's much less likely to actually lose models to the Scream. Better save. It has the most wounds, so it's going to take the longest to take it down. The movement, not even really that relevant. This thing can just, spit hot fire on everybody. From a distance, he will just spit on you, and you die. Die a horrible death. And then he'll come over with his spiky things, yeah, those spiky things, and impale your face.
All right. Clearly, we've got some big fans of all three of these. So let's go. We've already started it. Most of you have already started picking the fights, as is normal for the showdown round, and that's fine. So what I need in this round is not just, I need you to give me some more.
Mm-hmm.
The math, that's fine. But tell me not just why your model wins mathematically, but why yours is the best. So, Tom.
Okay, well, let me just start with this. Paul, show me the math, buddy. Like all you're doing is you're talking, okay? And it's like talk. But I showed the math about how many wounds this character is putting out. The reality is that whatever wounds you're going to do to the Terrorgeist, you're going to have that against the Phoenix, straight up, okay? Even if I were to look at the math, okay, for your spitting fire everywhere, here's the reality, okay? For your Harvester Cannon, it does a D6, which means on average you're going to spit out 3 attacks. Out of 4+ to hit, you're only going to hit with half of those. So you're going to, and then a 3 to wound, you're only going to luckily get through one hit on your Harvester Cannon. Maybe, and assuming that I don't save, and I also don't ward save, which is fairly unlikely, I'm going to take 1 damage. For the Phlegm Bombardment, it's a 1 attack at a 4+, so you have a 50-50 shot. Once in every 2 rounds that actually lands, okay? But you're also only a 3+ to hit. It's more likely to rend, and the damage is higher, 3. But again, you're not going to have that many rounds to actually throw this attack around, and it still has to deal with a 50-50 ward save. So the math doesn't support you. And I can walk through every single one of your attacks, and the reality is that this is consistent across the board. You're not going to be able to put out enough wounds compared to how much damage that the Phoenix is spitting out. Okay. So, that said, let's say, hypothetically, that you even wanted to summon backup, okay? Both of you guys have summoning on your. I'm gonna call out an ability that both of you guys haven't even mentioned, okay? And suggest that even if you were to rely on something like this, both of them summon on a 10, which means you only have a 17% chance to summon. 1 in every 6 casts is actually going to succeed in summoning, okay? So that's going to fail. The best chance scenario for the Terrorgeist is to scream at 3d6 and will on average generate a 10. Against a bravery of 8 means going to do 2 mortal wounds, and I'm going to save half of those statistically from the ward save, which means congratulations. You've done 1 damage to me. I'm preempting you, Hooves. You've done 1 damage to me, and I'm going to fly over you for d6 mortal wounds. Congratulations. And again, the same just reads out for the Soul Grinder. Okay. Now, that said, why is it awesome? Let me show you why it's awesome. Right there. Do you see that? I don't know. It's one of the best paint jobs I've ever seen. What do you guys think?
Nah, it's not that good.
It has an ugly elf on it.
Yeah, keep telling me how terrible that paint job is. Please, I want you to just tell me how terrible that paint job is. It is one of the most beautiful models when paint gets on it and when it's done right, like this Flamespire Phoenix. It's one of the most enjoyable paint models that I hear to paint. It's a fantastic model, and it's compelling. It's evocative. It's just good all around, and I'm not even talking about the elves.
Okay. All right. Strong all around. I say that a lot. That's like my most common response. I have to bridge somehow.
True enough.
The people, the subtitle for this game is called
I'll just
Strong.
watch it for the rest of it.
Sure, absolutely.
All
All right, Hoops, go ahead.
First off, Tom, you got to work on that paint job, man. It's not that great. All right.
Keep bringing
Secondly,
it on.
I got more notes here that I was working on and just worthless. This is gonna be easy. So, you know what? All I hear from both of you is math. You know what? This isn't the age of Johnny. This is the age of Sigmar, which means the age of Jimmy. I'm Jimmy. And you know what? This thing is just going to dominate both of you. It's going to fly around, screech the hell out of you. You think I have 1 necromancer back there? No, I have like 200. They're going to summon on a dozen or more. It's just going to be bonkers. And you know what? I played a game before we did this, between all three of these. That thing dominated. It rolled all hits, all wounds. You guys missed every single time. And that's all I got to say.
Who is Jimmy? Can I ask that question?
Johnny Tim.
No, you cannot. I don't know who made the video.
Yeah. Also a guy who makes subs. All right, Cole, go ahead.
All right. So apart from the egregious misuse of the psychographic profile names, which I'm not even going to get into, that's a non sequitur for another day. And that goes for both of you, in fact. You know, the great thing about the Soul Grinder is it doesn't even need a paint job. This thing it will haunt your nightmares. This is like you show a little kid this model all painted up, and they will not sleep for a freaking week. This is just like scariness incarnate. They make movies about this kind of shit. This is what you want to just be afraid of and love. You know, and honestly, like, I'm going to be totally honest, I hadn't really, like, dug down into the Chaos Demon War Scrolls before I looked at the Soul Grinder. And frankly, it really does make me want to build a Chaos Army. The thing is just awesome. And you can play it in 2 different game systems. 1 model, 2 games. Double the value. That is some math you can take to the bank. Now, you know, I really should write more clearly. Anyway, you know, the argument that both of you are making, that, you know, the model's pretty, the model's nice, like, we're not here to, like, give each other hugs and get warm, fuzzy feelings, you know? I mean, maybe if we have, like, Tom's plot line of German dungeon porn play out, that we'll have something like that, but, you know, I don't know. It's pretty is not like a good argument for something you're going to take into war. That just doesn't even make sense. Now, let's see. I can show you guys the spreadsheet that I did. I don't actually have it in front of me because I did something I probably shouldn't have done, and it is sitting on my work computer because I did it at lunch. But I can provide it for you sometime in the near future.
That's real convincing. Continue. I promise, it's awesome.
Right.
So really, against the Phoenix, you know, yeah, sure, it has 50% chance to rise from the ashes, and that's fine, because if it doesn't get to fly over the unit and make its little rain attack, which really, like, that's only good if you're just flying around, or if you are charging and have enough distance to get over the model past 3 inches and then charge back. That's a tough cookie to crack because, you know, you've only got, let's see, hold on, I got these War Scrolls up right here.
16 inches, I'll tell you, 16 inches, 4 more than you starting.
That's fine. That means that you're still well within an easy charge range before you try and do your little flyby. And so it's unlikely to even happen against a unit like the Soul Grinder. And I'd just also like to point out that the Soul Grinder is the only one out of these 3 units that has a special rule that actually makes it better against other monsters. It's a monster killer. It's designed to kill monsters. It's what it does. It's going to take any of these guys down in a fight. And the thing that you guys haven't even mentioned, it's going to take everything else down in a fight, too. You know, we're going to be having these long shots across the battlefield. You know, it's a shooting unit. It's a melee unit. It's got good armor. Like, what the hell is a monster with a 5-up save? Like, that's not really a monster. That's just like a little fluffy bunny. That's not really something that you should be afraid of. And how the hell do these things not all have Bravery 10? Like, I would think that, like, if you're a monster, let's just get into the heads here. Like, obviously this has to be an elf monster, right? Because the Phoenix has lower Bravery than everybody else. So he's going to just run away, just like an elf does. Before anything ever happens, the Terrorgeist can just shriek him off the table.
All right. I'll stop it all right there because I'm good. The winner is picked. All right, and by the way, I'll let our audience and everyone else in on the joke. I painted that Flame Phoenix for Tom. That's my paint job.
I see. Well, it was brilliant, Vince. Brilliant.
Suddenly, I like it much better.
Sure.
Tell me how bad that paint job is. Come on, keep it there.
Yes, hence why I was trying to trap you into insulting me directly, as though I would care in some way. But that's fine. Okay. So.
Curse you, Tom.
All of Tom's penici were painted by me, so there you go. So if he ever shows you other ones, don't fall for it on the Frosties either. Ultimately, the winner for this was actually completely decided in the last round, and that is Paul. Paul, you win with the Soul Grinder. You gave me enough math to satisfy my math needs. I was happy enough with what's happening there.
I'm just happy Tom lost.
This is a face you can trust. That's what happened.
Exactly. And moreover, he gave me the total package. Talking about how scary it is, talking about how it works for 40K in AOS, that is good value. I like it. I like the total value you sold me on there, Paul. This is war. I want a scary, smoke-belching, demon claw-having, graspy dice roll-off, ridiculous machine that makes me want to start 2 new armies.
Well,
you
Vince,
gave me those points.
I understand if you don't want your show to end so early.
No. Look, hey, he gave me the full argument, and that's what wins a showdown round. You got to tell me completely why that thing is the best. All right. As I told you all at the start of the second go-around, Paul listened the best and gave me the total package. So there you go, Paul. All right. So that brings us to
I know I'm losing the last round.
All right, going into the final round. Tom is in the lead. He's got 2. Hooves and Paul each with 1. So it either gets decided or it goes to the showdown. So if Tom wins, he becomes the winner. If either Hooves or Paul takes the point, we go to the speed round. So here we go.
That Tom win 2 rounds, you know?
All right. Round 5. So we've mentioned Kings of War a few times during this this engagement, and as we know, Kings of War chosen by the U.S. Masters to be their game, coming up in popularity. I own the game. Have a lot of Mantic models, and so a lot of people are starting to look at the game, and that leads to this round. What is the best army in Kings of War? And as usual, I don't care how you define that, but you better define it well. That's what I'll say. So, the best army for all of our people starting to play some Kings of War. Paul, you got the first go-around in round 5. So, start us off, sir.
All right, into my glorious flame out in the last round, because I have no idea about anything about Kings of War. I have to look stuff up to see what all of this stuff actually meant. Anyway, so I went with the Abyssal Dwarves, and there's a really non-gameplay sort of reason that I like the Abyssal Dwarves. It's that they're really a knockoff of the Chaos Dwarves, right? That's basically the hole they're filling.
Sure.
Chaos Dwarves are an army that many people, up until recently, didn't even consider a real army. That you had it long, long ago, and it was abandoned, and some people just latched onto it and loved it and kept it around. But why does that make it the best? It's because it's basically a knockoff of a knockoff. You've got an army that was created primarily, the models were created by a third party, most of the ones that are in circulation. Then you have a bunch of people that get pissed off at GW and go create their own game system. It's a knockoff of Warhammer, and they include the knockoff army from Warhammer in their game. And not only that, it's just a cool army. They will literally run a train on you. Literally.
All right. I like it. That's that's strong. You're exactly right. They from the very beginning, the Abyssal Dwarves, perhaps before even this split, were capturing the idea of Come to us, Warhammer Exiles. We care and we want to support you. All right, I like that. That's good. It's good. It captures the whole flavor of what's currently going on in the scene. That's solid. Tom, you're up next. Best army.
Absolutely. Okay, so here's the deal. Clearly, the undead are the best army from Kings of War. I could talk about how necromancy abounds in the world, stealing souls and sending them to the Wicked One, Darunjak. I could talk about their leaders and how they're immortal. I could talk about how necromancy comes from Ophidia, the most ancient of all kingdoms, or how the greatest threat to the world right now in Mantica is Morgoth the Faceless, the most powerful necromancer to ever blight the world. But okay, let's be honest. None of us have actually played Kings of War. Okay. So, you don't need to lie about it. It's okay. It's okay. Paul, thank you for being honest. You don't need to lie about this, Hooves, when it gets to you. Okay?
I haven't even read the rule book.
Exactly. So, but I can assure you that even if you haven't played Kings of War, you've probably had their undead army march across your table. Why is that? Because their troops are better sculpts than GW's equivalent range. Have you seen their zombies? Have you seen, like, they don't even compare to the other races. Like, if you look at the sculpts, have you seen the Basilians or how about, like, their goblins? Like, their faces look like they've been melted with wax. I don't want to get too much into it, but guess what? The Chaos Dwarves or the Abyssal Dwarves, not so different. I actually had a mega army that I had delivered to my house, and I sold it because the sculpts were so bad. Now, that said, you know, there is a reason why, you know, I had hundreds of these undead miniatures that showed up to my house last month for a game that I still refuse to play, and it's because they're so awesome, the undead army. On aesthetics alone, the undead faction wins. You know, again, they're so awesome, they're marching out of their own game and into other games. They're coming for you.
No, I like it. That's good. You're right. I mean, going a long way back, we all know that Mantic zombies were the popular choice to be running across the table at you. So it's very likely that even if you didn't know it, you were already witnessing Kings of War armies marching. All right, Hooves, you've got the final say in the opener of this round. Oh, did we lose him? Hooves, are you still there?
Intimidated.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, there we go. All right, no problem. Go ahead.
You know, I happen to be a master of Kings of War. I play the game constantly. It's actually way better than Warhammer, in my opinion. And I play it every day almost. And here's the reason why the undead are far better. Kings of War is all about getting on the flanks, trying to surround your foe. It's a block infantry game. The undead have. They're pretty much, because they're not going to run, they're going to be more consistent. They're not going to get flanked. You can flank them by, getting the opponent in this huge mess in the middle, and you're just going to get all around their sides, and you're just going to win. It's a far easier army to get into, and it looks brilliant.
Okay, so another vote for the undead. I purposely did not make either of you change your answer, even though I knew you had the same one.
Yeah, I was getting worried there, Vince. I was getting worried.
No. I wanted you both to have the same answer because I thought it would be interesting to make you then prove to me individually why your answer is the right answer in this round. So, Paul, you stand apart here as having picked a different army, and so that gives you a bit of an advantage here in this final round. So, take us through. Why are the undead such a bad choice? See, with one argument, you might be able to crush both your foes.
I know, there's making it more efficient for me. But first of all, I would like to step out of the box and address the outright dishonesty of Mr. Hooves of Doom, who we all know has not ever laid his hands on the rulebook to Kings of War. I mean, neither have I, but at least I came right out and said it. Certainly, I'll probably try it. I can't tell you how upset that I was when I found out that there was going to be a GT 10 minutes from my house. Oh, by the way, it's Kings of War now. Anyway, the undead. Tom's talking about these great sculpts of the undead. And how, a lot of the other models, they're not that great. It looks like their face is melted off. Are you sure that those sculpts are actually good? Or do they just look good because they're so bad and zombies are supposed to look shitty. That really is my question here. Are they actually good sculpts? Or did they happen to be able to have good sculpts on something that looked like crap because, you know, they don't need to try that hard? That's why I paint my army the way I do. I don't know what the hell I'm doing, so I paint it up all looking like it's beat up, beat to hell, and it looks like it's supposed to look like that. Now, also, just to address both of you, the undead overall are just such a tired and been-done fantasy trope. They're in, like, everything. You know, going way back to Dungeons and Dragons, and even before that, long before that, the undead were a concept in literature for so long. It's been so done over and over and over again. And in a game like Kings of War, that it was already sucking flavor out of the game by having so much sameness across all of the armies and how they perform and how the different models are fighting in battle. You know, it's just not exciting. It's not different. How many other crazy evil dwarf armies are there around? It's one of the few original things that's out there, which is ironic because this army is a meta knockoff. It's a knockoff of a knockoff. You know, but that's okay. That's okay. Because who cares if the models suck? Who cares any of these things? Apparently, you don't have to play with that particular model, right? Like, you can play whatever models you want. It's really the army itself that you care about. So if you have an army, like, arguing the models doesn't make sense. It's not really the army. It's just a representation of the army. Now, you know what? Instead of just rambling on, I'm just going to end it there.
All right.
I got myself. I started rambling and saying the same thing.
That's all right. You're
I
good.
stopped.
Yeah.
All right, Tom.
Good job, Paul.
That's good. So why not Abyssal Dwarves? And why, Tom, you need to sell me on you need to sell the undead over who?
Sure. Let me just open on Hooves and say, you know, who's first, thank you for your vote towards the undead as the superior army to, like, the Chaos Horde, for example. I'm glad that my presentation swayed you to such a degree that you decided to change whatever your prior answer was to undead, and at least try to copy me, however insignificant and unable you were to do that. Now, but I will say this, you know, to piggyback onto what Paul said, I mean, clearly you've been dishonest, okay? I at least admitted and called it out that none of us have actually played the game, and you, after agreeing to that, you flat out lied to our faces. With all of the arguments you've made, how do we even know that any of them are true? How do you, everything that you said about your army, how do we know that you've just not lied on everything and tried to be persuasive? It really calls into question everything that you've said, not only about this question, but all of your prior questions. That's problematic for me.
Wow. Going all the way back here.
Now, let me just say this. Yes, they are terrible sculpts. I had them in hand for your Abyssal Dwarves. Okay. Now, I will say this: you were also very factually wrong in your presentation as well. You made a statement about they'll literally run a train over you. Yeah, sorry, friend. You're thinking about the legions of Asgore or the Tamerkan legions of Chaos Dwarves in GW. There are no trains in your Kings of War Chaos Dwarves. They won't actually drive a train on you. They don't have anything like trains in any of their army. You're thinking of the wrong game. Now, and it also isn't a knockoff in that GW produced official minis for 5th edition. They produced official books for 5th edition. It is a knockoff of an official product, not a knockoff of a cheap product. Now, or not a knockoff of a fake product or another knockoff product. Okay, it was a legitimate army at one point in GW's history. Okay, so that's another factual misstatement of yours that really calls into question your argument. I don't know what I can trust out of what you've said. Now, let me go back to your critique of my army. Now, if they're so bad, you said, well, what if they're just so bad because they're zombies and blah, blah, blah. Okay, so here's the problem. if they are that bad, then what does that say about GW and their competitive products who people bought the Mantic zombies over them? Okay? Standing side by side, what that says is that GWs were so bad that they took the better of the two bads. Okay? So, even if they're bad, whatever that means, they're better than everything else that's out there. Okay? And finally, you said that undead have been done before. They have nothing new to offer. Again, clearly you're just not familiar with the armies. If you'll look, they actually offer werewolves in their undead army, something that GW doesn't have. They have dire wolves, but that's very different, undead wolves, as to living creatures that transform into hybrid wolf creatures. Very, very different. Overall, the undead range is stunning. It's competitive in Kings of War and in hell. This is an army that you can play in Kings of War. This is an army that you can play in Ninth Age, something that you can't do for Abyssal Dwarves at this point in time. This is an army that you can play in 8th Edition Warhammer. This is an army that spans... This is such a significant army that it spans all the lines between the games. It literally can march on all of your tables and take all of your babies.
All right. Well, there you go. The babies have been taken, and characters have been impugned. All right. Hooves, you have what could be the final say. So go right ahead.
I'm going to crush it this round. And Tom, man, you have talked forever.
That's what I do.
All right. So, let me rip up my notes one more final time. I've ripped them up about 1,000 times, and they're just worthless. I'm going to crush you.
I think that you can't read, Hooves.
And, well, it doesn't really matter because it's just all brilliant. And,
why are you wasting all that paper? Do you hate the Earth?
Yeah, pretty much. So here's the deal. Tom, you kind of admitted the undead were the best armies. And I am a Kings of War master. I play Kings of War. Like I said, I don't even like Warhammer at this point. I'm a Kings of War guy. For all you know, I have a bunch of different YouTube accounts. It could be, Horns of Doom or something, which I'm just, Kings of War content every single day putting it out. You guys just don't know, and I am a Kings of War fanatic. I love it. And here's the deal: with the Abyssal Dwarves, I don't see that army on the field. I've played tons of games. I don't see the army on the field. And if it was that popular, you'd think it would, be everywhere, and it's just not. And so that's my answer to that. With regards to the undead, Tom is zeroed in on the wrong thing. No one cares about aesthetics. Like, if you're looking at the models, you're going to go for GW. But what you want are the rules. And undead rock because they're consistent. They're not going to run away. You can flank the hell out of your opponent. I believe me, I've played 1,000 games here. I know what I'm talking about. And boom, way better answers.
All right. We'll call it right there. A very strong round of absolute hilarity by 4 people, or 3 people, who I am all pretty sure are not actually experts at this game. But that's all right. We've given a lot of fun for Kings of War. And, we'll have more questions about those, as I'm sure we all become masters and play some maybe over the months to come. But I am going to call it, and I do think that the final point, it's got to go to Tom. That, clearly this was
damn right.
And Tom, I'm pretty sure you were just reading me the Wikipedia page about the world. I'm still going to give you credit for actually bothering to look up the Wikipedia page. That, and I found some of your other arguments about the undead compelling. The thing that really actually sold me for it, Tom, was when you mentioned that it's this army that can go in this game and this game and this game, and you pointed out its usefulness across all of these, and the fact that it has been used for a long time in all of these. And that was actually what put you over the top right there. Legitimately, I thought that was a very strong argument. So, Paul, Hooves, very good discussion, very entertaining, but that means that Tom gets the 3rd point, and that makes Tom the winner for this one. So, no sudden death today. We have our War Games champion in my co-host. And believe me, nothing pains me more than to say that.
All right. Damn you, Tom.
I was really hoping that it would be one of you. I was pulling for both of you. I want you to know that. But my own personal feelings aside, and well-known hatred for Tom, his arguments were simply stronger. But everybody had great arguments all the way around. Gentlemen, did y'all have fun?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yes,
All
it
right.
was a blast.
Absolutely. I hope all of you out there watching certainly enjoyed yourself of all of us having, well, we'll call them quasi-real debates about plastic toys. So
Throwing
there
their
we
onion on
go. Hooves, as we mentioned at the top of the show, I'll link everybody's channel down below. Hooves, anything you wanna plug real quick about your channel? What should they go check out immediately first thing?
Hero Quest, man, there's like, I put out like a dozen videos or so in the last month. They're all brilliant. Go and watch them all. Like them all.
I like it very much. They were good videos. I'm not sure it was a dozen. It was close. There were several, but I'm not sure it was a dozen. Hooves did repost. You reposted the commercial on your channel, which, by the way, look, let me say this seriously. Okay, if you're anywhere near, my age, go watch that video, that commercial on his channel. I watched that thing and I was like, it just took me back. I remember seeing that on television when I was like 11 or 12 or 13. I don't know how old I was, and just blew my mind. I was like, this is the coolest game ever. So seriously, do yourself a favor, go watch that commercial. Paul, what do you want to give us something to plug? What should they go watch on your channel?
I have the #1 channel on YouTube about Warhammer that is primarily recorded from the inside of a car.
That's true.
There you go.
Narrow.
Is that the key to be #1 is to just narrow the constituency? I like it.
Get some awesome sponsors
really,
from the auto industry.
Yeah, I focus a lot on like the mathy side of Age of Sigmar, which kind of breaking down individual units and armies. Just started a series the other day looking at like individual units that have a whole bunch of choices on them, or an army that has a bunch of similar choices and how to evaluate them, and what's better in what situation.
Very nice. Obviously, super useful information, because one of the truly great things, and I really do believe this, about the Age of Sigmar is it made us all noobs. And you've got to love the unlocking phase of a game. And right at this point, we are all learning and have no idea what the hell we're doing still. There's no way you could have played enough games to be an absolute master. And Paul will help you along that road. Tom, anything you want to talk about before we go?
Hey, if people want to see Vince and I continue to bicker and fight like an old married couple, Warhammer Weekly every Wednesday night.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
There you go. And I will also say, of course, don't forget to check out the Mordheim expansion for AOS we did. If you maybe don't like AOS because it doesn't have a certain amount of structure, hey, but you love Mordheim, well, it's peanut butter and chocolate, hopefully put together, and we're going to give you some sweet Mordheim Reese's peanut butter cups. I'll link that below as well. Please do get it. We have the alpha set of rules out there very early, and we certainly welcome all of your feedback. I'll link both the original video where you can leave comments and the rule set itself. At any rate, as always, we thank you very much for watching, and another congratulations to Tom for being the War Games champion. Hooves, Paul, absolutely stellar competition. You are both welcome back anytime.
Thank you very much.
Continue the debates. And for all of you out there, we'll see you next time.